Breakfast and brilliant ideas, coffee and conversation, we're serving up that and much more at IBJ Media's events. Join us at an upcoming event and kickstart your day with fresh ideas and new connections. Check out our event lineup and register now at ibj.com/RSVP. Do you want to mix moments of inspiration with time to network? IBJ Media Events has you covered. From industry deep dives to awards celebrations honoring Indiana's top leaders, see what's coming up and reserve your seat now at ibj.com/register.
So I would tell anybody that's aspiring to look at different career paths, do something that aligns with your values. My values and what I live by every day are integrity, respect, innovation, and perseverance. All rooted in my faith, but those are what I show up with every day.
That was Burnell B.J. Grimes, Director of North American Legal at Carrier, talking about his career ascension as a Hoosier native and how currently emerging and established business leaders can be successful here in Indiana. And this is IBJ's The Freedom Forum with Angela B. Freeman. Good afternoon, BJ or Burnell. Welcome to the Freedom Forum. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and to get to know you a bit better. It seems like we've known each other forever and not at all, so I'm glad to have you here. Before we get started, however, will you please tell our listeners a bit about you, your educational and professional background, and any factors that have led to you becoming an attorney and now the Director of Legal at Carrier?
Sure. So first, let me say thank you, Angela. I always tell you this. I am a fan of not only you, but this podcast and the platform you're creating. It is truly a conversation that is needed in our business community. And I just appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and appreciate you and the IBJ for the opportunity. But sure, a little bit about myself. I am a born and raised Hoosier, born and raised here in Indianapolis, grew up on the Northeast side. I actually come from a very large family. I'm one of 9 kids.
Wow.
And so in a family like that, it's through blending. My parents had kids before they got together, and then they got together and had 4 more back to back. I come from a large family. My dad's also one of 12 kids. And so that's Hopkinsville, Kentucky. That where the grind's from, Kentucky, and just a large family. And so family is very important to me. Grew up on the Northeast side, went to Lawrence North High School, then went to IU Bloomington, where I received my BA in pre-med and political science. Now, political science wasn't my original major, but that's what I ended up with. And then decided to go to law school, went to IU McKinney here in Indianapolis. Really enjoyed that. And people always say, you're crazy. You enjoyed law school? And I did. I enjoyed law school. I enjoyed lifelong friendships I made, the experiences that I had. IU McKinney is a great school, and I can't rave enough about it. Then started practicing big law for the beginning of my career, primarily focused on business litigation and white-collar defense and internal investigations. Really loved that work, had some great mentors, but then decided to transition my practice to a more business corporate focus and had the opportunity to go in-house, work for a small startup, primarily focused on M&A transactions as well as commercial transactions, and then decided to go back and get my master's in strategic management from Indiana University Kelley School of Business. After that, had the opportunity to join a much larger life sciences organization at Roche Diagnostics. There, I was responsible for managing, drafting, reviewing, negotiating our large corporate account agreements for all of our franchises at Roche Diagnostics. Really enjoyed that work. Got to work with the business and on the commercial side of things, and that's always a whirlwind, but really enjoyed that work. And then had the opportunity to join a much larger global legal team at Carrier, where I serve as legal counsel for our North America energy systems business. That's where I am now. I'm really enjoying it. My practice right now is focused primarily on commercial transactions, procurement, manufacturing, and regulatory compliance. But I get to work with everyone in the business, so I really do love it. That's me on the professional side. But on the personal side, I'm married to my wife, Brittany. We've been married for 5 going on 6 years. Let me get that. And we have 2 young kids, so we're in the trenches. We have a 3-year-old named Burnell III. We call him affectionately Trip. And then we have a very active 1-year-old baby girl, Brooklyn Bell, who is just, again, very active. So as you can imagine, our weekends are full of birthday parties and family events. But my wife and I strongly are very passionate about being involved in the communities where you live and work. And so we're very generous with our time and resources when we can, especially for causes we believe in and for organizations we believe are making a difference in the community. So that's us.
I have already learned so much about you. Number one, I'm a Kentucky girl.
I know,
I did
yeah.
not know that
Yeah.
your family was rooted in Hopkinsville, which
Yeah,
I know very
Hoptown.
well. Yeah, absolutely. So that is already one thing. But what I did appreciate in your story, and we'll dig into some of this more, is that you tended to go a bit more the traditional law school path, right? Did undergrad, went to law school, and then went out and did some different legal opportunities.
Yeah.
And so that led you from IU Bloomington to McKinney Law School, which you mentioned. So I want to know about that because I, as you may or may not know, never aspired to be an attorney. This is something I've learned about and then got actionable to make happen. So I want to know, when did you become, or when did you learn or realize that you wanted to become an attorney? What exposed you to that opportunity in all this big families you come from? Maybe you had lawyers as part of your family. I'd like to know how that came about, because I'm always intrigued to know those who aspire from a young age to be an attorney, what exposed them or inspired them to become that?
Yeah. So actually, I have a similar story to you. No one in my family was an attorney. And the original plan, I would say, was to be a doctor. I did well in STEM, all the science, math in high school. And so I wanted to be an anesthesiologist. That was my goal. I actually went to IU Bloomington. My original degree was pre-med chemistry. So I was a chemistry major.
Wow.
And I had an opportunity when I was in undergrad to participate in a shadow program. And got to shadow an anesthesiologist and found out, hey, I don't like blood. I'm not into this.
Yeah.
And so now the timing of this was not perfect because this was going into my junior year at IU. So I had been a chemistry major for a while now. I found out I don't want to become a doctor like I wanted. So my whole first semester of my junior year was wrapping my head around what am I going to do next. But luckily I was blessed enough to have some fantastic mentors and the folks that really spoke life into me and was like, hey, you're a campus leader. You love giving back to the community. You like to read and write. You like working with people. Have you ever thought about law school? That never crossed my mind before. I have no attorneys I didn't have any doctors either, but I had no attorneys in my family. But luckily, I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. And so I had a lot of fraternity brothers who are attorneys. And so I was able to talk to them. I was like, okay, I could do this. And so I was like, I'm not going to continue to be a chemistry major. I'm not into that anymore.
Putting yourself through undue harm.
Why do that? Why go through biochem and all the other things? No, let's not do that. Let's switch it up. And so at the time, this was 2012, 2011, as a young Black man on campus, Barack Obama was the president, right? Michelle Obama was the first lady. They were both attorneys. I was very interested in his administration and in politics. So I was like, hey, let's try political science. I'm interested in politics, all those things. Let's try political science. It's a good way to give back to the community and get connected. And a lot of attorneys are political science majors. Go that route. So that's what I did. I was a pre-med political science major. And that's what I graduated with. And so I transitioned into applying to law school, going to law school. I did the ICLEO program the summer before law school, but I did not know what type of law I wanted to practice. I always say that I feel that law school kind of leans towards litigation, but I took one of Professor and former Supreme Court Justice of Indiana, Frank Sullivan's courses. And that completely changed my perspective. And I got the business bug in me. And I ended up taking all of his classes and all of his courses. And that, again, sparked something in me to be like, hey, I can combine business and community work together to make the community, Indianapolis, Central Indiana, better. And how we can do that through legal business service. Now, when I started in the firm, as in a big law firm, they have set positions available, right? And so there were no business corporate associate positions available. So I chose the next best thing, which was business litigation, which was a great avenue because it's great to know what happens on the back end when things go wrong so you can correct them on the front end. So that was a blessing in disguise. And that's been the story of my life. The kind of blessings in disguise is when one door closes, another door opens. And so that's how I got into the legal profession.
Yeah, I want to drill down on that thought. When one door closes, another one opens, because as we talk more, because I've learned, and I was just talking with our previous podcast guest, Dr. Russell Leday about the no's and retrospectively being able to be thankful for the no's when in the moment it's typically a disappointment or a letdown. But then when you look back, you're thankful for why that opportunity didn't come about or that relationship didn't last or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So we can certainly talk about that more. But going back to your career path, so you transitioned to political science, got off the STEM chemistry bus and decided that you were going to pursue law. And with that, I appreciate that you've actually had some disparate experiences in that you mentioned that you worked in big law, but then you've also worked in the governor's GC office, which I think is pretty interesting. So you've gotten many different aspects of law, from the legislative side to the judicial side to the private practice. I don't know a lot of people who have had those many different types of experiences and vantage points of the law and how the law may be interpreted, implemented, etc. So how do you think having all those different experiences really has helped you in your current position? What insights have you gleaned from some of those opportunities? And again, how the law can be interpreted or implemented in different venues, different organizations, different aspects to really help or hurt people?
Yeah. So it was all intentional, right? One of my mentors, Jimmy McMillan, we know him, Tic Tac. He told me to be intentional when you go to law school. Get all of the experiences you want so that you can understand how the law impacts not only business, but community development and individuals' lives. And so I wanted to see all aspects of law when I was in law school. So I did judicial clerkships. I participated in externships with the governor's office and within businesses. And today at Carrier, where I work, created an externship program there to create those opportunities for more students at IU McKinney to have experience working within a legal department in-house, because you don't get those opportunities a lot. So it's all about being intentional. It's all about getting those experiences. What I will say from my professional and career perspective, big law and being in a law firm helped me to understand precision and attention to detail and responsiveness and delivering client value. That was very important. But being in-house, it's taking all of that and making sure that it aligns with business objectives and understanding the why behind the legal question and not just answering the question that's right in front of you. Okay, here's the legal issue. Here's the answer. How does this impact our future goals? How does this impact revenue? How can we get to where you want to get to in a compliant, efficient way that also increases revenue and things of that nature, and also helps the community and all of those things. So I would say it was intentional to get those perspectives because I bring all of that to the table, and that informs my practice and how I try to advise my clients which are in-house, which is the business. And I get to work with everyone from marketing to engineering to finance to sales. I get to work with everyone, but I can speak the legal talk. I can also speak the business talk. I can combine those to make sure that whatever we decide to do or whatever the business decides to do, it's informed and they know that it's in the best interest of the business and to move things forward. I would say having all of those diverse perspectives and diverse experiences has helped in my career as well.
Yeah. So given your current business focus, you said you've been very intentional, and therefore I have to believe that when you decided to get your master's and your MBA, that too was intentional. You are one of several attorneys I've talked to that have gotten your law degree and then went back and gotten an additional degree of some kind. Whereas when I went to law school, I was like, this is the final road for me. I'm done with school. Yeah. So I want to know, what did you anticipate getting an MBA would give you in addition to your legal knowledge? And how do you implement that, particularly considering now that you're working with so much of the business as your client? Yep. How does that help you, or how has that informed your legal advice or your legal counsel in better understanding not just Carrier as a business, but business more generally via your MBA?
Yeah. So I will start with the master's in strategic management from the Kelley School of Business. I really was intentional again, trying to really round out my experience as far as business knowledge and then strategic skill set. So for the master's, it was really about leadership, business leadership, strategy, and making data-driven decisions. That's what the strategic management. And then when I went back and got my MBA from the University of Michigan, it was more about gaining the tools from a financials perspective, from an operations perspective, from an accounting perspective, and then also executive level decision making. Because I wanted to evolve my practice from just being a legal advisor to being more of a strategic partner for the business, and being that business partner and being at the table with the business to help make the decisions, not being a check the box lawyer. I never wanted to be just a check the box lawyer. Let me call BJ because there's a problem. He'll solve it. Yes, he'll solve it, but he'll do it in a way that because he understands the business and he understands what we're trying to do, he can do it in a way that we won't lose community involvement, we won't lose community funding, we won't lose all these different things that we want to do. So it was really to help me better align my legal strategy with the growth and operational goals of the business. So that's why I went back and got those 2 degrees. But I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning. I love learning new things. If I can do it in a school environment, that's even better.
Yeah. So I want you to tell us, because I speak to so many executives on this podcast who have these big, beautiful titles and go into these big, wonderful buildings that are the abyss for people who are on the outside. And while you may have a wonderful title, I want to know for those emerging leaders who may be listening, who aspire to be an attorney, but like me, didn't know really what that meant practically. It sounds good and you think you're going to make a bunch of money, but what's that mean on the day-to-day level? Tell us what your day-to-day experience entails. What are you doing? How are you able to influence your team and manage and or make positive change for your organization, particularly when you talk about the community perspective and making sure that there is still engagement and advocacy and impact for the community, not just on your day-to-day business perspective, but also in the community you engage and live and work. And then what are successes that you've had in your current role that you're proud of and things that you would like to see happen in the future?
Yeah. Right now, I'm at Carrier Corporation, and Carrier is, just a step back, it is the global leader in the energy solution space, particularly around heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. Carrier is the leader of that. And so for me in particular, my role is I'm legal counsel for the North America energy solutions business for the residential, right? And so for me, it's really about every day, it's about how can we make the business better? How can we move things along? How can we be more compliant? And within my business, it's a $6 billion business. So you're working on global manufacturing, commercial transactions, procurement, supply chain, and then regulatory compliance. But I get to work with everybody. And that's what I love. I love helping the business and the folks that work within the business get from where they are to where they want to be. I enjoy that process. And again, I get to work with engineers. I get to work with marketers. I get to work with sales folks. I get to work with finance folks and understand what they're doing and how they're moving things forward. And it's always great to work in a company that aligns with your values. So I would tell anybody that's aspiring to look at different career paths, do something that aligns with your values. My values and what I live by every day are integrity, respect, innovation, and perseverance, all rooted in my faith, but those are what I show up with every day. Innovation is very important to me. It's about how you can do things better. And I think Carrier does a great job of trying to find innovative solutions. As a global leader, they're still looking to find innovative ways that we can go to market and provide solutions for our customers. And that aligns directly with my values. So it's always good to have a value alignment. What I'm proud of right now is the work that we're doing within the legal department, trying to find ways where we can be a better support for the business. And that all comes down to our legal leadership. Francesca Campbell, who is our GC, does a fantastic job of trying to figure out ways we can be better. And that's all of the senior leadership team. But what I'm proud of is developing I like to call it a legal request site, using our existing IT infrastructure where folks within my business can submit things, too legal, whether it be a contract, marketing content, whatever it might be, but they know where it's going. They know who it's assigned to, and we get things done efficiently. We've seen improvements there. I'm also very proud of helping to implement our new CLM process, our contract lifecycle management process, which is going to really empower the business to move more efficiently when we're talking about contracts and NDAs and things of that nature on a global scale. And I'm very proud of using AI and different technology to make that happen. So I'm very proud of that. And so I also enjoy mentoring the next generation and mentoring those coming up behind me, and making sure they have opportunities for visibility and things of that nature.
Now it's time for a break.
Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media Podcast Network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise at ibj.com to learn more.
We're back with Burnell B.J. Grimes, Director of North America Legal at Carrier, on this episode of the Freedom Forum with Angela B. Freeman. I can fully appreciate why innovation is so important, particularly for a global leader like Carrier, but also just the innovation you have provided in getting tools to the business on how they can get legal requests to legal. I appreciate in working with my clients how real of a challenge that is for global companies where you got little pods of people just off doing their thing because they don't know who to route legal questions to. They don't know who to ask. Maybe sometimes they're just not trying to ask legal. That's a real thing too.
That's true.
But nonetheless, when a company is so large, I appreciate that that's a real issue. And setting up systems and portals and websites and advertising that information internally is as important as anything you're doing externally to ensure innovation doesn't get lost. And from that vantage point, I want to talk to you a bit about intellectual property, because we know innovation is often driven by the ability to protect and or leverage many of your business assets, a lot of which is intellectual property. And I know you and I just had an opportunity to speak on an Indie Bar panel recently for two small business owners around the importance of intellectual property and protecting it and leveraging it as a business asset as important as anything else that a business can own or leverage. And so I want to ask you, because I feel like I'm always preaching this from the mountaintop. So I'm going to ask somebody else to be my amen choir today.
Okay.
And tell me about some of the biggest issues in big and small companies. Because I found, again, as sophisticated as many companies are, there are still gaps around legal issues, protecting IP, advertising, and making sure that your global personnel knows what steps to take in order to protect the company's IP. So what have you seen in Carrier or otherwise, innovative ways that you all have tried to make sure that your internal clients and even external clients know how to protect intellectual property, why it's so important to the business, and why protecting and leveraging that intellectual property helps Carrier and other companies stay as global leaders in innovation of HVAC or whatever the technical or subject matter area is?
Yeah, that's a great point, because we've talked about this. My wife and I own a business consulting firm that's really trying to be innovative in that she is a marketing executive. So she works with businesses to help them grow and find their demographic and help amplify their message and their product offerings. And then I come in from a business solutions consulting, helping businesses understand how they can protect, how they can leverage their assets. And one of the biggest misconceptions that I hear all the time is that IP is only related to logos or patents, right? But as we know, it's a lot more than that. It's your processes. It's your customer data. It's your customer list. It's your marketing content, things you put on Instagram, TikTok, all of that. All of those things are important when it relates to IP. And so the misconception is, like you said, IP is for large tech, big tech companies, and that's not the case. And so what I've found is that a lot of times, business folks are missing out on opportunities to protect their IP because they don't think it applies. But you can monetize your IP. You can leverage your IT for it to become a truly a business asset. And so what I think and what I try to do, and I think IndieBar does a great job of this through the program we participate in, is demystify IP and create educational opportunities for both small, mid-sized, and large businesses to understand how they can leverage their IP. I know Barnes does a great job. They have a great program where you can come in and learn about how to protect your IP and what you need to know about IP. Those are opportunities that we need to amplify and scale so that folks know that your IP can be an asset as well, and it can be leveraged to help you grow your revenue, help you grow your product offerings in different and unique ways.
Yeah, I appreciate you reiterating that. I want to shift focus a bit and talk about your experience. You've clearly been successful. You've come up through the ranks, had all these different disparate and purposeful legal experiences that have now put you in a position where you're the director of legal of North America at a major innovative company that's housed here in the U.S. And so I want to know, I often talk to people on my podcast around my experience as a diverse female because that's the experience I've had, right? I fully appreciate that men and diverse men in particular also have their own sets of challenges or issues that they face in corporate America, whether in Indiana or across the country. And so I want to ask you about that, right? Being a Hoosier native, growing up here in Indiana, living and working here, but excelling and ascending to corporate levels as a Black man. What has that experience been like? This is your home. What are the challenges that you face? What are opportunities that you've had? Tell me about that experience and what things that you have found challenging and what things you've also found very gratifying or hopeful, or particularly as we consider the emerging leaders and the next generation coming up after us.
Yeah, I hear this a lot. It's you walk into the room and folks wonder, why are you there? Are you supposed to be there? Oh, you're an attorney? What type of attorney? Where'd you go to school? Ask all the questions, which is fine. Sometimes you feel like you're having imposter syndrome or things like that. And I don't know if it's particular to diverse men or Black men in any profession or industry. But what I have heard is that there's this kind of dichotomy between performance and conforming. So perform or conform, where folks are overperforming in order to feel like they can be seen, but they also suppress a lot of what makes them unique and special in their culture and their background. For example, I might say, yeah, I love to golf. But you don't also know, I might not mention that I also like to line dance. So I know the cha slide, I know the Tamiya, I know the boots on the ground.
I was going to say, do you know boots on the ground? Because that's what it's about, right?
I know all of those things, but being able to be your authentic self and bring your full self to the role or whatever you're in has been a challenge for many. It's that dichotomy, that challenge that folks deal with and that I've dealt with as well. And it's about just remembering who you are, for me, it's about my faith. It's not being fearful because I truly believe that God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but it's about moving. It's about persevering. This is one of my values, through your values. But one thing I think that businesses can do is that while understanding that representation matters, it's important to highlight and bring awareness to different leaders in their different career paths so that folks feel more free to be themselves. Because what I tend to see is that everyone sees the leaders as, this is what I did. I did A, B, C, and that's what I did. So I need to do A, B, C. Well, what if I do G and then come back to A and then go back to F and then go back to A? There's different ways to do that. I think businesses can do a better job of making that more of a highlight and then normalize different leadership styles and create clear pathways for advancement so that folks can see other folks succeeding like they are succeeding. And that's why I try to mentor as many folks as I can mentor. That's why I try to be a good mentee to the folks who mentor me and make sure that it goes both ways, and just making sure that we provide that visibility to what different career paths can look like.
Yeah, I appreciate you stating that That is one of the reasons why I do this podcast, is because when you talk to leaders and then you hear their stories, you absolutely appreciate there are 1,000 different ways to get to the same place. You can go one way, I go another, and we still end up at the same space. So that is absolutely part of what I want to highlight in having these conversations, is that you can't appreciate until you hear all the different weaves and winds, jigs and jags that people make to get to whatever leadership role. And very seldom is it linear. It often is weaving and winding, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you couldn't tell me that I didn't plan to be. My goal when I got into the firm, I'm going to be partner, I'm going to be equity partner. I'm not leaving the firm. The adage is, you want to make God laugh.
Right.
Your plan. And
That's right.
There you go. So that wasn't the opportunity for me. There's other opportunities that grow from that. And these continue to grow and continue to persevere.
What I think is so humorous about that is I was the exact opposite. Had no interest in going to the firm because I had been in corporate America and was doing wonderfully. And here we are on the opposite pages. I'm longtime firm, you're longtime corporate. And that is the whole point we're trying to make, is that there are 1,000 ways to get to one single place. And even more importantly, what you thought, the nose, what you thought to be what is your desire or your goal is not always the case. Sometimes you see something prettier or shinier or different. Both of us anticipated that we'd be doctors, and neither of us were, because we realized that, we don't do the blood and guts. I think that's knocked a whole lot of people off that doctor path. Going back to talking about some of the authenticity, right? You mentioned that how leaders can allow people to be their authentic selves, the reason why representation and diverse representation is important is because it establishes for people that there is a opportunity, a openness to authenticity, to difference, to values that aren't always exactly the same. The growth, the increase for a company or organization often comes from having different people from different backgrounds that can add value to the corporation. So I want to know, as you've made this winding path to where you are today, how have you been able to continue to personify or demonstrate authenticity in a way that, provides an inclusive workplace culture, so that those coming up after us, the emerging leaders, see opportunities to be excellent, but still be authentic, still be true to oneself, be able to play golf and line dance, all the things. Like, I think that's an exceptional example of all the different facets of who we are, and that we can be one place in one situation, be a completely different person or in a different situation, and still be true to who we genuinely are. So how have you gotten comfortable with that? And also tell me how age and wisdom, because I truly believe some of that just gets a little easier with a bit of age and wisdom. So tell us about that.
I've always believed that authenticity equals living through your values and not just through titles. So it doesn't matter what your title is at the corporation. It's what are your values? And so for me, it's about integrity, respect, innovation, perseverance. Those are the things I try to live through every day, trying to stay rooted in my faith. Those are the things I lead with. And so I lead with innovation. How can we do things differently? What can we do? And that's how I lead a team. Thinking about integrity, doing the right thing when no one's looking. That's important, trying to do that every day. Persevering. There will be challenges. We all have challenges. We all have ups and downs. We have doors closed. We hear the no's. But how do you persevere through that? Do you give up, or do you just keep moving on? And then respecting everybody. If I expect respect, I will gladly give you respect regardless. It's leading through those values. Also, empathy and transparency build trust and psychological safety. I just wrapped up SKL. Shout out to SKL 48, Ra. And our theme this year was about empathy, and not just giving out empathy when someone messes up or makes a mistake, but receiving empathy. Because we all make mistakes and we all come from different backgrounds. And so having that empathy for walking in somebody else's shoes, but also being open to receiving empathy is very important, and being transparent. That, again, builds trust, because inclusion is not rooted in everyday behavior. It is rooted in everyday behavior. It's not rooted in one-off programs or initiatives and things like that. And we've seen study after study show that when people feel valued and seen and feel safe, they contribute more. They bring their whole selves to the job, to the task, to the project. And I think we're going to see more of that as more millennials and more Gen Z enter the workforce and enter into leadership. You'll see that authenticity matters. It really does, because folks can see when you're not leading through the values. If you say one thing on paper, but you do another thing in reality, folks can see that. So I think it's going to be it's a business imperative to understand different perspectives and then also be authentic in how you present your values to the world.
Yeah. So you mentioned Jimmy earlier, and you mentioned, and I'll reiterate, that he is a exceptional mentor to both of us and so many other professionals in this city and nationally. But one of the things, that Jimmy requires with his mentorship is that you as the mentee become someone else's mentor. And of course, over the years, you and I both I just left a lunch with a student. Like, I'm always talking to students, and I'm always talking to anyone who wants to meet with me because he instilled that in us. I find that there is not enough of that. And I do appreciate we are all busy. Lord knows we all have demands on our time and attention, but I really do feel that responsibility because I know how many people poured into me and gave me information that ultimately helped me navigate and figure out how do I get to where I'm going. I want to know, what is your approach to mentorship and sponsorship of emerging leaders and particularly diverse talent? I also want to know, how do you navigate? Because I've had plenty of conversations with mentees who are just, yes, ma'am, I'll do whatever. And then those who are like, okay, I don't think you know what you're talking about. Yep. So how do you navigate the easy people as well as the challenging people, the people who are not so bought into whatever your advice is? And don't just think that's who I was to Jimmy. Like Jimmy would tell me stuff and I'd be like, that don't exactly align with my lifestyle or whatever I thought it to be. So how do you manage that? Because that can be challenging sometimes. So tell me how you organize and operate your mentorship, sponsorship, championship development of emerging leaders.
Yeah, so a huge proponent in mentorship and sponsorship. And sometimes folks get the definitions mixed up. I always say mentorship is guiding someone on their journey, giving them advice along their way on their journey. And sponsorship is about lending your own influence on behalf of someone else, right? When they're not in the room, you're advocating for them. When they're not in the room, you're promoting them and you're telling folks what they're doing. Again, I always believe in lifting as you climb. And so I try to be a mentor to as many as I can because I didn't get here by myself. There was a community. There was a bunch of folks. And another adage of Jimmy is build your personal board of directors. And your board of directors should not be folks that look exactly like you. It should be folks that come from different backgrounds. Right. Corporations, they don't have boards that are consistent of everyone from the same industry, from the same profession, with the same career path. It's very diverse from industry to career path to gender to all of the different things. And so that's what you need to create. And I always tell that to all of my mentees is you need to create your board of directors. My board of directors is very diverse. And so I encourage my mentees to push back on me. If you don't believe, tell me why and let's talk through it, whatever that might look like. But you don't need to be a yes man for me or a yes woman for me. It's just about taking this knowledge and doing whatever you want to do with it. I just want to share this knowledge with you so that you don't make the same mistakes or that you can excel in a different area. So that's what I try to focus on, creating your own personal brand of board of directors, leading with confidence, leading with visibility, and then again, continuing to guide people and sponsor people when they're not in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. And it's particularly important for emerging talent, young talent, and diverse talent. So that is all critical. So as we wrap up, BJ, I want to ask you, you've clearly navigated an exceptional career through challenges and successes. We all go through that. What have you learned during this phase of your career that you wish young professionals and even their corporate leadership and management and supervision would know earlier, such that you can mitigate or avoid some of the pitfalls or the challenges. What would you tell emerging leaders earlier so that they know that? And then what would you offer for the emerging leaders who are still interested in being successful in Indiana, particularly in corporate America in Indiana? What do you think are a couple things that would make anyone particularly successful here?
Yeah, I would say for the aspiring person moving up the ranks and things like that, I would always say communication is key, being responsive is key, and then proactively seeking feedback. You'll be amazed at how many folks don't know how other folks view their work and what they're doing. And when you don't know that, you can't adjust and move and get better. So I would say proactively seek feedback to accelerate your growth. Speak up about your strengths. We live in a time where humility somehow equals silence. I should be quiet. I should be humble. I shouldn't share what I'm doing, what I'm achieving. You need to share those things so that folks know what you're doing and they can help you along the way if they want. But also for folks in Indiana and Indianapolis, it's a small community, but building relationships early, not when you need them, but building them early. That's key here in Indianapolis because, again, it's a very small community. Folks usually grow up together or come up together. And so building those networks and not being afraid to network. I didn't know anything about networking until really I got to law school, but it's a very important thing. And I always tell law students, like, you need to have the grades, of course, but you also have to have the network. You can't have one without the other in order to be successful, especially here in Indianapolis. So building that network early. And then for the business leaders, I would say invest in people and not just their performance. I truly believe that sustainable leadership is relational. If you know the folks who are under you, you know their wife, their kids, you know their family, you know what they like to do on the weekends, you know what their hobbies are, you can better support them, see what they need, and invest in them. So I always say invest in people, not just their performance and what they can provide for you.
Yeah. BJ, this has been an exceptional conversation. Thank you for all your words of wisdom and your calm advice. I'm so impressed. It's much needed. I think there are a lot of leaders who could really heed your words and your comments and your encouragement. So thank you so much for being here and sharing with us on this 49th episode of the Freedom Forum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Burnell BJ Grimes, and thanks to you for joining us on this 49th episode of IBJ's The Freedom Forum with Angela B. Freeman. Please come back next month for another conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Central Indiana business community.
Stay ahead with Inside Indiana Business Radio on Demand, your go-to source for the latest business news across the Hoosier State. Join hosts Gary Dick and Alex Brown every weekday morning and afternoon for concise updates on Indiana's top business stories. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast app or listen at ibjpodcasts.com.
The IBJ Media Podcast Network is the soundtrack of a growing state. Indiana is on the move, and you can hear it happening on the IBJ Media Podcast Network. We bring you the voices at the center of our economy, our courts, our companies, and our communities. Subscribe now and be part of the conversation that's building Indiana's future. Find all of our shows by searching IBJ Media in your podcast app or visit ibjpodcasts.com.